Good morning. I want to welcome you all to our session today. We've got a very interesting topic, and I'm sure you have all given some thought to this in your life and in your business. So I'm looking forward to what we have to look at. I want to give a thanks and a shout out to the Portsmouth, Ohio Chamber of Commerce. They promote these events and support these events, and we appreciate that sponsorship and that partnership that we've had through the years. So our topic on this 2026 BBS Power series is Brutal Optimism, and the subtitle for that is How to Maintain a Useful Attitude and in difficult times. I think most of us that are somewhat aware would say we live in difficult times. I imagine most of our ancestors would say that as well. I don't think this is anything new. We certainly have challenges in these times that are much different, and because of technology and social media and the progress of things are quite different than maybe what have been in the past. But at the basic level, we're still human beings, and we have the same challenges and issues with ourselves. So, where are we headed today? I always start with the rules of the game, and I like to talk about these rules in terms of the topic that we're addressing. Why do we have rules? Why do I choose to have rules for us to agree with this morning? Well, you are taking 30 minutes of your precious life and you're committing that time to this 30 minutes together. And I absolutely want you to get the most possible value and use out of this today. And I have found through 24 years of coaching that these rules that I'm going to give you, if you'll agree to abide by these and be in compliance with these, that you will get the most out of today. So these rules are for your benefit. So let's look at the first one here. You're going to agree with me to own this. Most people have a belief that you're born an optimist or you're born a pessimist or you're born somewhere in between. It's kind of genetic. My mother was a pessimist, or my father was so happy and upbeat. And this idea of personality. I want to challenge that paradigm today. It's not that there's some truth to it, but I want you to set that aside and say, my optimism is up to me. This is not up to circumstances. I'm going to take ownership of my response and reaction to life. I'm not going to blame other people for my optimism or my lack of optimism. I'm not going to make excuses for my being what people have called me, a Davy Downer. The question for you, are you going to take ownership today of your attitude and of your mindset and in your outlook? If you agree to do that, or to at least be open to it, we're well on the way to a wonderful morning together. The second rule is you're going to participate 100%. This is pretty practical. You're going to fully be present. You're going to fully engage with your mind with what we're talking about. You're going to be curious, and you're not going to be distracted. Hopefully you're in a setting right now where you can keep your focus on the program, where you have a phone out of sight. They've said, there's research that says if you can even see your phone, there's a bit of a distraction there. I would get that muted and turned off and away from you. No multitasking here. We want you to fully participate to get the most out of this. 30 minutes, full engagement, the best you can do. Third, be a little 3 or 4-year-old in your head. What do I mean by that? Knowledge is good, but you have so little of it that it's not that helpful. If you look at all the knowledge that can be had in the world and how much you have, it's not that much. So what I'm going to encourage you to do is set aside what you know. Set aside your presumptions. Set aside all your knowledge and understanding of optimism and what you think it is and what you don't think it is, and just be interested today. Be curious today. Be inquisitive today. Be open-minded. That rule will help you get the most out of this morning. And finally, if you own it, if you participate, and if you get rid of your I know, we're going to have some fun. And if optimism is anything, it's learning to choose fun, even in difficult situations. I hope that's why you're here today, that you want to bring a little bit of a cheer, a little bit of an upbeat, a little bit of a morale, positive morale, and feeling and leadership to your circumstances and to yourself. So let's go here. Brutal optimism is the phrase I'm using. What is brutal optimism? I want you to look at those two words and consider what that might mean. Most people think of optimism as being a positive outlook, an expectation or a feeling that things will turn out well. I think that defines it in general terms. So you add the word brutal to it. Life is brutal. Situations are difficult. There is pain in the world. There is resistance in the world. There are down people that are very negative and even toxic in the world. That's the brutal truth. That's the brutal fact. The question is, can you be brutal in your assessment of what your situation and circumstances are, not in any kind of denial, but looking face to face at the actual truthful situation? We call that the realism side. By the way, it's not real. It's your perception of what you see and what you're taking in. But putting that aside, there are true problems. There are real problems. Is there a way? Here's the curiosity, getting rid of the I know and just being curious. The question on the table this morning is there a way to look at difficult situations, dire situations, and be optimistic? Does optimism come from circumstances and the outside, or does it come from your inside? I'm proposing to you that you can own your optimism, that you can learn to be optimistic if you don't tend to be an optimistic person, that you can practice optimism. This is something that can be learned, developed, enhanced, supported, and practiced. This is true ownership versus being a victim. I'm just not a morning person. Can you learn to be a morning person? If that would help your situation? Absolutely. I just tend to look at the negative side of things, Dave, or I'm just a realist. And you use that type of language to excuse your lack of optimism. If you will look at a book by Martin Seligman called Learned Optimism, he did a research on thousands of people, tens of thousands of people. This isn't just a little bit of optimistic philosophy or somebody just wrote a book. This is a neuroscientist that did a thorough study of the topic of optimism, and he concluded a lot of interesting things about optimists. And the main conclusion that came out of that book, hence the title Learned Optimism, is that optimism can be learned. This is about neuroplasticity of the brain. We can actually change our attitude. We can actually change our outlook. We can actually program the way we see things to be more effective, to be more useful. And so brutal optimism is an optimism that's learned and practice, that you can look at the brutal facts, you can look at the real world, you can look at what's going on, and you can choose an optimistic attitude and approach. That's what we're going to look at for the rest of this morning. I like this little formula. We're going to use it this morning. Be times do equals have. Let's just be simplistic with it this morning. You want to have a more optimistic outlook. You want to have an optimism in the face of difficult situations. Well, what we're going to look at is, what do you need to do to have that? And who do you need to be to do those things so you can have that outcome? That's what we're going to look at here for the next 20 minutes or so. Let's look at the B side. Who do you need to be, or who do you need to become to be an optimist? This is all about mindset. This is about thinking. It's about philosophy. It's about beliefs. Let's look at several here. We've already mentioned this one this morning. You need to shift your mind from being an outside-in person, that's a victim mindset, to an owner mindset. It's the idea of what can I do and what will I do, not what did they do or what is going on out there, or if the government would just get it together, or if my neighbors would just leave me alone, or if my kids would just be quiet, or if my husband or wife would just appreciate and love me. All those phrases are victim phrases. You are making yourself a victim to what's around you. A key mindset or mind shift of being to have optimism is to move from that victim mentality to an owner mentality, where you take accountability and ownership and responsibility for yourself and for the way you choose to think and respond to others. Second, you need to move from concern, your mindset, your focus from concern to influence. What does that mean? Well, in Stephen Covey, The 7 Habit, he addresses that. He says we all have a circle of concern, a list of things that we're concerned about, maybe even things that we worry about, that we stress about, all the problems in our lives, all the things that bother us. There is a subset. If you made a list of all those things, let's say there was 50, there's a subset of those things where you have an influence. There's a subset of those things that you can actually own and do something about. That's where you have influence. You cannot force other people to change. That is outside of your influence in a bigger picture. Now, you may be influential with certain people. They've allowed you and given you permission to influence them, or perhaps you're a supervisor or a manager and they've been placed under your influence, so you have some responsibility there. But let's just say this, folks. There are things that we're all concerned about, the coming ice storm. By the way, I don't know that another one's coming, but as soon as I say that, you feel it. But those concerns about the weather, those concerns about major politics, those concerns that we have no direct influence over. If you want to be an optimist, you need to move and spend your mental energy and time where you have influence. And the center of that influence is yourself. You need to practice moving from looking at things subjectively based on how you feel to objectively. What are the facts? Feeling to facts. To be optimistic, we need to be brutal in the sense that we look at the facts. What is actually true? Not what do I believe is true, not what is my truth. What is actually true? Fourth, we need to move from this status of smug knowing or just satisfied thinking that I have it all together and know what's needed to a curiosity. That opens up our minds to listening and understanding and seeing new things, things that we didn't see before. Moving from knowing to curiosity. And this one is a little bit newer in my practice, but I tell you, it is so powerful. We need to move from personality to system. You know, we don't have to be psychologists to really be good leaders. We don't have to be good psychologists and extensive psychologists to lead ourselves. We need a better system. Let's not look how we can change our personality. Let's look at a different way of doing it. Let's look at another way to approach it. Let's look at another set of steps to take. Let's look at another system to adopt to be a better optimist. Optimists are very practical people. And then, so let me review there. The B of the be, do, have. It's a mind shift from victim to owner, concern to influence, subjective to objective, knowing to being curious, and moving out of the realm of trying to figure out personality to a system. All right, great, Dave. I understand the thinking. That's helpful, but how do you apply it? Well, I want to just look at a series of habits. These are things you can do to start to create optimism in your life, in your mind, in your approach. This is how you can learn optimism. How you begin your day. You knew that was going to come up today, probably. How do you begin your day? With a smile, perhaps with a cup of coffee, with some prayer, with some vertical focus, with some big picture things. Do you look at your schedule and the things coming up, and are you thoughtful and are you engaged? How can you be useful? That's my word for this year. How can I be more useful today? As I look through my list of things that I'm going to do, or I look forward at my day, how can I make a positive difference? How can I be a blessing, if you want to look at it that way? And then at the end of the day, gratitude, reflection, thankfulness. That creates optimism. It's the two bookends of the day. We start the day with gratitude. How can I'm born today. I've got a new life today. How can I be useful? And then I end the day and lay my head down with gratitude and thankfulness and reflection. Second habit. I wouldn't live without this one. Look to the Creator for your confidence and hope. I don't have it all together. I'm not the end-all answer to everything. I want to look to the one that made all this to understand how to be confident and hopeful, because he is the one that's truly in charge of things, not me. Third habit. Look closely at the facts while setting aside your reactions. That's that subjective to objective in practice. Write down the facts about the situation that you're tempted to be negative about and not be optimistic, and just get factual with it and leave your feelings about it over to the side. Don't let feelings run the show. As they say, don't let the inmates run the asylum. It won't be a good outcome. Habit 4, be open-minded and consider all the potential outcomes. You say, Dave, does an optimist look at potential negative outcomes? Of course. You can have an optimistic attitude even as you look at a potentially negative outcome. Who are you going to be given that this is the direction of things? 5, clarify and commit to your non-negotiables, regardless of outcome. Again, in that center of influence, what you can influence is yourself. I am going to be kind, period. In every situation, in every way, that is non-negotiable. For me to become unkind and mean-spirited is non-negotiable. It is not going to happen. You can even get that with your team. It's called core values. This is who we choose to be regardless of outcomes, regardless of situations. That's habit 5. Habit 6, this is something you can do. List every action that you could take to create a desirable outcome. You could even do that in a team. We've got this terrible situation. We're looking at it. We're looking closely at the facts. And now we're going to set aside our reactions. We're going to consider all the outcomes. And we have a few things that we know are not going to change. Who we choose to be as a people is going to be the same. And now let's start to list creatively every possible action we could take to make things better, to lead to a better place. And then when you get done with the list, say what else and what else. And go crazy with this and have some fun with this. Let your creative mind come in with that optimism and start to think of wild things you could do as well as sensible things you could do. We're not committing to anything. We're just listing every potential action that we could do to make things better. And habit 7, keep laughing and go for the gold. Once you have all those things in front of you, just go for it and laugh at it and stumble and fall and skin your knee and get back up and keep a positive, upbeat, energetic approach. That is a choice, my friend. That is something that you do have influence over, is your own attitude. And if you choose to do that, you will be practicing this brutal optimism. And I love to laugh, and I love to keep it light, even in very difficult situations. So we've seen who we need to be. We've seen what we need to do to be a brutal optimist. What are the results? What are some results? Well, here are some of them. You are going to stimulate and release creative thought within yourself. The human potential is amazing. The human mind is an amazing thing. But often it is kind of tamped down and clamped down by stinking thinking, as Zig Ziglar used to call it. We have these negative, terrible thoughts that are all made up, not based on fact, based on feeling, based on conjecture, and that quenches that creative thought process. Be a 3-year-old. Don't have an I know. Just become curious, and you'll stimulate and release creative thought. And as a leader and a manager, if you can get your team on board with that, if they'll choose to come with you, then we get the collaboration of several people's creative thought. If you choose to be a brutal optimist and practice this habit, you'll energize perseverance and resilience. You won't give up. You won't wear out. You won't burn out as fast. People that get negative burn out. So you're saying, Dave, it's up to me if I'm going to be positive and optimistic. I'm saying you can do it. It is possible. This is a habit. This is not a personality. This is a system of optimism. You'll increase your leadership influence and your positive effect on other people. People don't want to be around negative, down, sour people that don't see any possibility and potential for things. And if that's where you are, I'm not here to beat you up. I'm here to help you change. You can actually start to change that habit. You can choose optimism. And finally, more peace and more big picture purpose. Brutal optimism frees you from the trap of fear and negativity and loss of hope. This brings you a new sense of possibility and creativity. What could happen here? What are some things that could be much better? So that's what I have for you this morning. You're saying, well, Dave, what do I do about this? What next steps do I take? Well, I'm going to give you some offers, and they are free in the sense that you're not going to pay any money for this. You are going to give some time for each of these. But the first one is I'll be glad to have a Zoom conversation with you to discuss your current situation. Sometimes having a coach or somebody just to think through something or to ask some good questions. All I really do as a coach is help people change their perspective. Changing to a optimistic outlook is just a change of perspective. Circumstances may be about the same, but how I see those circumstances and how I'm going to approach them is what coaching is. Coaching's about performance. I would love to coach you. You just request it. You just email me and say, I'd like an hour of your time, Dave, just to discuss some things and to help me. I would love to do that. That's my meat and potatoes every day. That's what gets me out of bed. I love to do that with folks. I'm asking you for something, I guess. I'm offering to do something. I'd love to have some conversations. Second, if you want to look at that slide a little closer and you want some other articles around this issue, I'll be glad to send those to you if you request them. And then if you'll go to my website, I have literally hours of training and hundreds of short articles around similar topics that are all free of charge. And I've just put those there as a give back to the community and to the people that want to improve. They want to get better and they want some help. So www.mentordavebeam.com is the address. That's where you can sign up. We're having one of these sessions every month. And there it is, Dave Beam at mentordavebeam.com. Any of those things or even other things on your mind, email me today and we'll look for a time, if it makes sense, to get together and have a conversation. So with that said, we're 5 minutes early. I think being early and getting out of these things 5 minutes early gives you a feeling of optimism. It didn't run over, and I don't think we felt too rushed. So with that, I'm going to bid you a great Wednesday and hope to see you next month on the call. And go to the website and live it up. Talk to you later. Bye-bye.